Separation is the cause of your pain. Pain of money, the pain of loneliness, maybe even the pain of health. Consciousness is always whole and complete. So that means you, not the container per se, you that inhabits the container are always whole and complete. We try to attract health, love, and abundance without even recognizing these are not things that we attract. These are things that we are. Stop trying to be human. You are a container that has consciousness. Human condition is not the truth. Human condition is a circumstance. You're listening to the Transform Your Life from the Inside Out podcast. This episode is titled, Separation is the Cause of Your Pain. Now, you've heard the phrase before, something akin to, let's be one with God, or we are one with Source or Divine Mind, whatever you choose to call it, infinite intelligence maybe. Most of us have heard this before, and most of us actually like that phrase, meaning people who listen to the podcast because I know they're generally spiritual. But the reality is, most of us don't even get close to knowing that truth about being one with Source, God, Divine Mind, whatever you call it. And that lack of awareness is what sets most of us up for the pain and the struggle in our life. So if you'd like to start releasing the pain and struggle, meaning the pain of money, the pain of loneliness, maybe even the pain of health, then keep listening because we're going to dig into that in this episode. Hi, I'm Jim Fortin, and you're about to start transforming your life from the inside out with this podcast. I'm widely considered the leader in subconscious transformation, and I've coached superachievers all around the world for over 25 years. Here, you're going to find no rah-rah motivation and no hype, because this podcast is a combination of brain science, transformational psychology, and ancient wisdom all rolled into one to take your life to levels you've never thought possible. If you're wanting a lot more in life, to feel better, to heal, to have peace of mind, to feel powerful and alive, and to bring more abundance and prosperity into your life, then this podcast is for you because you're going to start learning how to master your mind and evolve your consciousness. And when you do that, anything you want then becomes possible for you. I'm glad you're here. Okay, so in this episode, we're going to be talking about separation. For the next couple of months, these episodes are going to be a little shorter. I know I say that, and I've said it in the past, but that's probably going to be the case here. The reason why is I have moved from Sedona, Arizona last weekend to Colorado. As it is right now, I have no internet in my house, so literally I'm doing the best, that I can do to record this and get this to you. So I don't even have, video right now where I can record video, so to speak, and make it a video audio podcast. So for this week, and probably next week I'll be back with video. This week is going to be audio only in the event you're someone that watches video. Now, no worries, because I promise to give you a very juicy takeaway, food for thought in this episode that will greatly improve your life when you integrate it. Okay, so let's dig right in. Separation, meaning you separating yourself from Source. Many hundreds of years ago, René Descartes said something along the lines that we live in a mechanistic universe, meaning it's like this cosmic wheels are turning. And we live in this mechanistic universe and we are mechanistic beings. Well, what he did is he separated us from being conscious beings. He literally just inferred we are mechanical beings and we do something and we create outcomes. Even today, that's the way most of us live. But the thing about separation, separating yourself from whatever you choose to call it, and personally, as I talk more about this, I need to pick one phrase, whether it be Source or God or infinite intelligence or whatever. I just haven't settled on that for me yet, meaning sharing it in the podcast. But your separation from Source literally is what creates opposites. What we have to recognize is that Source, God, divine mind, universal intelligence, whatever you call it, there's only one source, only one God, only one divine intelligence, and we are one with that source. We are a reflection of that source. And we may think about this and we may analytically recognize it, but if we don't know it, what we automatically do is default back into, let me do XYZ to create the outcomes that I want in my life. Let me do college or education or whatever so I can create money. Let me do dating services or going on dates or whatever to find love. Let me do XYZ to create health. Now, these things can all help, but what I want to share with you is all of these things, everything in your life comes from source. Source is the life force in you. And when you separate yourself from source, thinking, oh, I have to do things to create what I want in life. And by the way, you do have to do things for the most part, but what matters is where and what is your consciousness while you are doing those things. A simple example might be, you could say, I'm going to make a lot more money. So I'm going to do XYZ. And as you're doing XYZ, your mind might be in, let's take sales, for example. Somebody could be in sales and they could say, okay, I'm going to make a lot of money in sales, but I'm afraid of sales. I hate selling because when I sell, I feel cheesy. Salespeople bother people. So they're in the activity and in the action of creating the outcome they want. They generally do not. Why? Because their consciousness is separated and contradicting the activity. Their consciousness is, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this. Now, speaking of opposites, we literally, when we actually go into beings that do things to create, in that moment, we have separated ourselves from source, because even though we are source, we're not working from source. We do not identify as source. We are working mechanically. And when we work mechanically, that's what Machiavelli called the beast burden. And then we get into good, bad, right, wrong, rich, poor, lonely, and a loving relationship, sick and healthy, and etc. The truth is, we have been brainwashed. I remember I told this story today in the Soul Forge group, and I've mentioned this on the podcast before, I do believe, where when I was 5 years old, I asked my mother if I could have a Coke. This was 1970. And my mom said, yes, you can buy a Coke, but you have to earn the money. Tell you what, if you will clean out the flower beds right in front of the front window of the house, I will give you a dime. Talk about child labor, talk about cheap labor. But so what I did, and it wasn't a very big bed, maybe a 4-foot bed, 4-foot by 2-foot flower bed. So I cleaned it out and I got a dime and I bought a Coke. And back then Cokes were nickels, so I had a nickel left over. But in that moment, what she really taught me is when you work, when you do some kind of physical production, then you can have, then and only then are you creating. Now, you're just like me in some way, and you have learned the very same thing. And when we live from that paradigm in life, in that moment, we become mechanical creatures, and these mechanical creatures then become separated from the divinity in us, from the consciousness in us, and from source. Because we never think about, well, okay, I will clean the flower beds, but what is the consciousness in me that's actually cleaning the flower beds? So then what we do is learning this as a child, and you've learned this in some way, we all have. And we've been brainwashed. That's why I have a new program coming. As you've heard, if you've listened for any amount of time, we're doing the final TCP, Transformational Coaching Program right now. I've had, I think, 7,500 people at this point go through that program, and I'm no longer doing it. I'm moving on to much higher functioning coaching, training, and specifically, I prefer the word mentoring, and that's going to be the program called Brainwashed. So what we do is when we live from this polarity, we are literally choosing to separate ourselves from source. What most of us do is that even when we are air quote looking for air quote God, what we do, and I grew up in Texas, so it's a very, it's the Bible Belt. It's the buckle of the Bible Belt. And I grew up in a Baptist family, Southern Baptist, fundamental. Wow, talk, really fundamental. My parents weren't big churchgoers, but we had to go to church every so often. And it was the fire and brimstone type of church, the dogmatic religion, and you're going to go to hell, and you're a sinner, and we're all sinners, and all this kind of frickin' bullshit. And people go to church because they're searching for God, not even recognizing that's not God. That is dogma. That is human-created dogma. And human-created dogma, to a large degree, separates you from source. People don't even recognize when they go to church and they buy the dogma, they're separating themselves from source. When we speak about separating ourselves from source, when you look at a cup of water, you could take a cup of water out of the ocean, and that cup of water is not separated from the ocean. Now, it may be technically separated, but it's the same consciousness because everything has consciousness, even metal, everything on the planet has consciousness. It is the same consciousness and chemical construct as the ocean. Same thing with you, and I've said this probably 10 times on this podcast. But when I say it in different ways, maybe it will start resonating or resonating at deeper levels for you. You, yes, you listening right now, you are the same as source because you are source. Now, most of us, I heard this phrase for the first time in my life. I've talked about it on the podcast. I heard the phrase in 1992 from Wayne Dyer. And Wayne said, most of us think that we are human beings having spiritual experiences, but actually we're spiritual beings having a human experience. Well, let's go even beyond Wayne Dyer, and let's look at this in a different way. Most humans are aware that, hey, okay, and by the way, most people are not even conscious of being conscious. I mean that kindly, I mean it respectfully, and I was that way for many years in my life, at least until I was 30 or so. We're not even conscious of the fact that we are conscious beings because we're so busy trapped in the 3D, meaning the mechanical aspect of us, we're not even recognizing that we are consciousness inside that mechanical aspect of us. And matter of fact, us, the body, is not even us. That is the container that us, meaning I, the soul, lives in. But most of us think that we are humans that have consciousness, and that is backwards. We are consciousness that has a human form at this particular time and in this particular space. I'll say it again. We are first consciousness that has, or basically has incarnated into the physical form that you are right now in this particular time and this particular space. Now, the thing about consciousness, God, divine mind, divine intelligence, is always whole, always complete. It's infinite. But form, the physical body, is finite. Now think about what I said and let that sink in. You are source. You are consciousness. Consciousness is whatever you choose to call it. God, divine mind, source, whatever. Consciousness is always whole and complete. So that means you, not the container per se, you that inhabits the container are always whole and complete. What do you think that means for your life? Ponder that for a moment, because I'm going to leave you at the end of this episode with a question to ask yourself, and I request you dive deep into this question that we'll get to in just a minute. What most of us try to do, and I was guilty of this for many years, we try to, and trust me when I tell you, growing up poor, man, oh man, oh man, I told you, no bullshit. From about 1992 to the year 2000, I literally read over 5,000 books. I read hundreds, and I mean hundreds of books on manifestation and every particular angle of manifestation. Why? Because I was trying to attract abundance. And what many of us do is we try to attract the law of attraction, blah, 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 bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. It's out there everywhere now. We try to attract health, love, and abundance without even recognizing these are not things that we attract. These are things that we are. Because all of these things are consciousness, and we are consciousness. Maybe you've noticed what I'm trying to do here, what I'm attempting to do, and what my intention is. And I'm going to be talking about this a lot more in the coming episodes, but in different ways from different angles and different aspects. Some podcasts I'll talk about money, some will talk about love, some will talk about health, and I'll talk about all the brainwashing that you have around these areas. And then sometime, it's early June now of 2026, probably around August or so, early August, I have a new mentoring program coming that's called Brainwashed, Exit the Lie, where I'm going to immerse you in processes with me, mentoring you to really exit the lie, the illusion that you are separate from source. And I want to start introducing you to the power and knowing yourself that you are the power of source. And I want to help you ingrain that, and I will help you ingrain that. So that's what I'm doing in this episode, is getting you to think, but mainly starting to get you thinking about yourself in a new way. Like I said earlier, I'm going to keep this short. How about this? Stop trying to be human. And I know you're like, Jim, what the fuck are you talking about? Stop trying to be human. If you said, well, I am a human being, wrong. You already have it backwards. You are a container that has consciousness. Now, by human science, you may be identified as a human being. You may be identified as a physical being, but you, the consciousness listening, you are not human. You are infinite consciousness that is inhabiting a body at this moment. And when we try to be human, then what we try to do is we try to be rich, we try to be healthy, we try to be all the good things in life. And the irony is, from our own lack of awareness, is that we try to be what we already are. More specifically, you may have heard me mention before, be, do, have. Now, the container that I am, Jim Fortin, I heard that phrase probably 15 years ago, and shockingly, no one had the trademark. So I trademarked the phrase, be, do, have. You must first be before you can do, before you can have. The fact that you're listening to this podcast, you're not listening for me. I know that. You're listening because you want something from the podcast. And what you want is you want to have more. More love, more health, more money, more abundance, more joy, whatever it might be for you. But then what we try to do, go back to what I explained about the flower bed. As a child, for me, we try to do things to create the outcomes that we want. What we must do is become the consciousness first of those things. We try to do the mechanical behavior, but as I mentioned earlier, the consciousness is mismatched with the mechanical behavior. Therefore, the behavior, we wonder, why am I busting my ass? Why am I knocking on a bazillion doors? Why am I making all these phone calls? Why am I going on all these dates? Why am I doing all these things to heal? But I'm not getting the results that I want. You must recognize yourself as universal intelligence. You must recognize yourself, and I mean this respectfully. You probably analytically think about it, but you haven't literally come to know at a profound and deep level and recognized yourself as source. So for example, if I called your name, you're walking in a crowd, and let's say your name is Bob, and I'm like, Bob, even if I'm not calling you, maybe I'm with a different friend, Bob, and I don't know you, but your name is Bob. When I say Bob, you automatically turn and look, at the person calling your name because you recognize yourself by that name, by that identity. Through all the years of brainwashing, you have learned to recognize yourself as the container and not the conscious truth of the container. We have to start identifying as source. Now, again, I'll settle this before the next episode in my own mind, and then I'll announce what I'm going to call it. But it'll probably be source or infinite mind or infinite intelligence is probably what I'll go with. But we have to start identifying as source. But yet what most of us do, and I did literally for 40 years of my life, literally, we identify as the human identity and the human condition. And when you identify as the human condition, you inherit all the limitations of the human condition. All the sickness, all the poverty, all the struggle, all the hurt, all the pain, all the broken heart, all of that. You identify with that because in your mind you are that. Here's the reality. Human condition is not the truth. Human condition is a circumstance. The truth is that you are the consciousness, you are the source that creates the circumstance. You are source, you are source creator. Think about that. You are source creator. Now, when I say think about that, I don't mean, even though I said it that way, I don't mean analytically. Meaning, let me get in my analytical mind. Let me analyze this. Let me no. Feel it. Know it. Come to feel it and know it and recognize it. Have the awareness, and I'll be helping you with that in coming episodes. Have the awareness that I am source. What scares the shit out of people, and it's so literally counterproductive, or opposite rather, not counterproductive, but opposite the dogmatic religion that most of us have learned. You are your God, your divine mind, your infinite intelligence, your source. You are every bit of that. So I told you earlier, and this is your transformational takeaway, that I was going to give you a juicy tidbit. Here's something that I have for you. And I have a question, and I request you sit with this question until we meet again on the next new episode a week from now. This question that I'm going to give you, ponder it, go sit by the lake, go sit in the backyard, go sit under a nice sky, meditate, whatever you call. But the deeper you explore this question, not analytically, but in looking for the awareness and the truth of it, the better your life is going to get, and that I promise. Here is the question. Are you ready? The question is, what would be true if I were pure consciousness having this human experience? I'll repeat. Here's the question again. What would be true if I were pure consciousness having this human experience? When you unpack that, holy mackerel, because you will recognize in that moment what would be true for you is anything, the health, the money, the relationships that you intend and choose for yourself. Okay, hopefully you enjoyed this episode, and if you did enjoy, I would ask something, and I rarely ask, and I started asking recently. Please share these episodes with people that you know will also find value. As well, if you would, please go over to iTunes, and seriously, I'm extremely grateful. I don't know to what degree it helps the algorithm, but if nothing else, it helps my social proof, which helps me reach more people. Go over to Apple iTunes and leave me a 5-star review. I would be very, very grateful for that. And in that moment, you and I are in ayni, A-Y-N-I, which is exchange and the reciprocity of life. Thank you for listening, and I'll catch you over on the next new episode or a throwback episode. Take care. Bye-bye.